Welcome to the Operation Life podcast. I'm your host, Ian Inman, and today we have the special opportunity to welcome the one, the only, Dr. Edwin Adams, man of faith, husband, father, pharmacist, personal development coach, author of Misguided in the Magnolia, and known as the Global Leadership Alchemist, and founder of Disrupt Comfort. How you doing today, sir?
Man, good to be here. You are hired as my hype man. I appreciate that, brother.
And it's, man, I love doing intros because that's my one chance to just be super extra. So I love it. Thank you so much. All right. So I'm just super curious in your backstory. You know, we were talking a little bit earlier this week. I think it'd be an awesome place to start with your book, the Misguided in the Magnolia, a climb through the branches of self-awareness. So where were you in life? Boom. And there it is for those who are watching. So where were you in life when you were leading up to writing this? And you can start either at your childhood or like just that season of life where you're like, I'm going to write this book.
Yeah, well, the two are integrally connected, right? I mean, the book starts describing me as a child in the top of a magnolia tree, ergo the name of the book. But you know, it was 10 years ago, Ian, that for 5 years I tried to write a book. And one of my dearest friends would ask me every summer, hey, how's the book coming along? And I would tell him, I am so close, man. It's going to happen really soon. And then the next summer, I would tell him the same story again. And after 5 years of telling him that, he said, dude, I don't think you're ever going to write it. Just stop telling me. I'm no longer interested in you writing a book anymore. And man, it crushed my soul to hear that. So I went home from that experience, locked myself in my office for 2 days, finished the book, and hit publish on Amazon self-publishing. And that was the hardest thing I had done in a long time was actually hit that button, because Ian, once you hit it, you open yourself to a global world of criticism. And that's what I was terrified of. But in that moment, stepped through that and hit the publish button, and I was done. But, to answer your question, I felt like I had a story to tell. And writing a book seemed like not only a good challenge to help bring that out, but I enjoy writing. I love writing. So it was a perfect match at a perfect season in life, and I just had to do it.
Wow. And for those who haven't read the book, what is that story that you felt the need to write about? Now, obviously, for those listening, buy the book, you'll get the full story. But like, what's the spark notes of it?
Yeah, Ian, I would say that the spark was really how inspired I was through other people's stories. And I guess the realization was I did not have to attain any level of success for my story to be valuable to somebody, right? And the more I expanded my network, the more I realized there are patterns in other people's stories that kind of match mine. And man, I wonder if my story could help somebody else, because I know other people's stories have helped me. So I said, why not? I don't have to wait. I can tell my story now. But then, that insidious part of your reptilian brain that says, oh, you're not good enough. Nobody really cares about your story. You're not worthy. All of that imposter syndrome paralyzed me for so long in telling my story. And what a waste of time that was.
And what's the significance behind the magnolia tree?
Yeah, it was a safe place for me, Ian. It was my comfort zone, if you will. And, as a small kid trying to climb that tree, I had to overcome fear. But it was a beautiful tree, covered by the thickest green leaves. And when I was in there, nobody could see me. Nobody could bully me. Nobody could pick on me. Nobody could find me. Nobody could do anything. And I thought that was the goal in life.
Wow.
And I realized that was probably a little misguided thinking, but a young kid who has been programmed a certain way through his experiences, I can see why a lot of people end up stuck in their comfort zone. And I was stuck in my comfort zone at the top of that tree, and it just wasn't the way that life was meant to be lived. So that's kind of the metaphor of the comfort zone for me, is coming down out of the tree, re-entering the world, and taking some risk.
Man, and I mean, I'm speaking from my experience. Every time I've climbed a tree, the worst part is coming down. And you look at a rock wall, you look at rock climbing, I don't care what you're climbing. Going up, you're like, okay, I've got this. It's when you hit that peak and you're like, okay, it's time to come down. That is where you're like, am I sure-footed? do I believe that this is going to hold, like all of those negative beliefs? So I think that's super powerful, the concept of climbing out of the tree and how that leads into now in the personal development space that you're in.
Yeah, I mean, the tree was a great place to visit. Don't get me wrong. I think the comfort zone is a great place to visit. I think the paralysis that occurs in particularly men's life these days is getting stuck there, not being able to come down through the branches of learning and wisdom, and then you find yourself just stuck and stagnant and wanting more, but you don't know the pathway down. You can't see the next branch to step on, and yeah, it's a great metaphor.
Well, I love that. And so for the guys who are stuck, so say that we'll keep using the metaphor because I love it and it's promoting your book. So shameless plugs there. For the guys that are at the top of the tree right now, and before they even get to looking out to you for a resource, what would you say is the first step for them in being able to even start seeking help and to start that descent?
Yeah, Ian, it reminds me of, any rehabilitation program that you hear about, be it post-traumatic stress, be it alcohol, substance abuse, pornography addiction. It is surrender is the first step, and going, you know what? There's one way out of this, and I can't do it by myself. So I'm going to surrender to my higher power and let the Spirit fill me and move me into doing something, taking an action. So it has to be surrender in the top of the tree, going, you know what? I'm going to be okay. I'm going to climb down in faith. I'm going to take that next branch level down, not every one of them, just the very next one. So I don't have to have it all figured out. I just have to have the next step figured out. And I think that surrender and kind of reducing your scope right after that is what gets you on the on-ramp back to what purpose, passion, in your course in life, your trajectory, if you will, get you back on track.
That is insane. And I don't think I've told you this, but when 6 months ago, I think it's been 8 months now. But when I gave my life to Jesus this last April, one of the things for me in order to break that cycle, because my wife had already left me, we had divorce papers that were signed on the table, my business had already crumbled, my Army career was dissolved, and I wasn't going to go be a Green Beret because the medical separation was starting. Everything had like reached this pinnacle. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting on the floor of my empty townhome and I'm just like, what now? And I got triggered and my throat started to swell shut. And so in that moment I sat there and I was like, I'm done. Like, this is as bad as it gets. I don't care anymore and I'm over it. And when my throat came back to normal, obviously I didn't die, right? But like when I came back to normal, I was so mad and I'm like yelling out to God and I'm like, you would have thought I'd been grateful. But what I find so fascinating about what you just said is the word that stuck out to me when I'm yelling out to God is the last thing I yelled out is, why are you doing this to me? What do you want me to do? And then just that gut feeling, just when you hear his voice, and I just kept hearing the word surrender. And so now I'm sounding crazy, talking to myself out loud, and I'm not a believer at the time. So for me, I'm sitting here like, do I really believe this? Like, I renounced my faith for a reason, right? And so I'm like, surrender to who? Myself, my family, my wife, my friends, the business, you, like what? And then all of a sudden it hit me. Yes. Oh, wow. And it was that one word, surrender. And that's what I think is so powerful. I don't think I've told you that before.
No.
So,
wow.
For you to say the first step that you have to take to come out of that hole is to surrender, you just pierced through my soul. And it was like the confirmation of like, that is so true. And I relate to it on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
So
without surrender, man, the ego fights the belief. It's a resistance that creates heat and pain and trauma. And that's what's got you stuck, is this constant rub against who you think you are and who you want to be. And there's this gap that you're trying to close. Man, that's a huge mental and spiritual suck right there. Mm-hmm. So without surrender, it's a long, arduous battle. I'll say that. And it's hard to get ahead in the battle, if you will.
Absolutely. And there's three areas of your life that I find so fascinating. So one of them is you being a pharmacist. The second one is you being a man of faith. And the third one is you being the life coach. So you're kind of hitting 3 core areas of someone's life where you can help them, whether it's going to be through the medications, whether it's through the spiritual journey, or whether it's through the mental reset. So how do those 3 areas of your life align in order for you to provide a greater impact?
Yeah, Ian, I find great value in life in solving problems. And if you look across those 3 domains that you just mentioned, I think I've created opportunities in each one of those domains through a passion and a purpose, I think, of helping people synthesize the answers to their current problems. So, be it in health, it's not always going to be a pill. It's not always going to be an injection. It might be a change in mindset that has more value than a pharmaceutical agent. But I can play both sides of that proverbial fence and give you the necessary science to help you overcome an ailment, if you will, but also give you the mental awareness to take control of your thoughts, which empower your beliefs, which drive your feelings, which change your actions that create the outcomes you want in life. So I just see it as a spiritual process of going through those kinds of transformations, so you can see how they're all interwoven. And I've put myself in those domains in an attempt to master them. And I'm so far away from that, Ian. That's the lofty goal, is mastery. But I'm still insatiably curious about all 3 and want to get better in all 3, because therein lies the answer to all human suffering, is persevering in those 3 domains.
Which one are you finding the most useful right now in the current times that we're in? Which one is the one that stands out the most that you can see being the most rewarding?
Yeah, definitely the spiritual aspect. I think we've lost a component of that somewhere in culture and society, and we've made it oh gosh. It's a judgmental component now to say you're spiritual. It kind of puts you in a category, and I'm just not a believer in categories. That's not helpful. I think we've been isolated for a long time, Ian, through this pandemic experience we all went through. And I think in the process we lost some of our spirituality, and finding it again has been an invigorating process for me. I enjoy trying to answer questions that can only be answered one way, and that's through faith, which is not knowing the answer. But going on belief and faith, I think we've forgotten how to do that.
Wow. And I'm assuming that's what led you over into the personal development space, where how did you meet John Maxwell?
Yeah, great story there, Ian. When I got to college many moons ago, so we're talking over 30 years ago, when I was in college, I was coming into college believing my value as a human was based on my ability to perform on standardized exams. All right. So through that process, I believed my value was held in the hands of someone else. I didn't know it actually came from within. Read one of John Maxwell's books by accident, and it was called Failing Forward. And I was like, how in the world can you fail forward? Failure is not an option. I can't afford failure. And that book just was a smack in the face for me, Ian, that showed me there is value in failure. And that is truly the only way we learn and are free from fear, anxiety, depression, is when we embrace the possibility that we will fail, because right on the other side of the failure is a great lesson that's going to change our trajectory. And I was just, what? You mean I can take some risk? What? I don't understand this. And so that got my curiosity going. Well, what is this that just lit up within me? So just finding the next book and the next book as an opportunity to learn and grow outside of what I thought was true. I needed to redefine truth for me, and that started in college, and just has kept going. And one day found that John Maxwell has a team you can join and have a license to use all of his content in a personal development kind of business, if you will. And I think that's what kept me from going out and being a personal development coach by myself. I was thinking, how am I going to develop all this content? What am I going to use to coach people with? And John solved that problem. He said, look, I've been writing books for 40 years. I'll give you everything I have if you join the team, because he believed that his legacy of leadership is not going to be in books. It's going to be in people using his books to change the life of other people. So I was like, dude, you had me at hello. I'm joining your team. And I have been a member of the team for 8 years now, and just phenomenal group of people, phenomenal experience and great content to help people have these aha self-awareness moments.
How did you accidentally find that book?
Yeah. So I was in the library one day, studying, trying to get ahead, rewriting notes in college. And somebody sitting next to me had the book sticking out of their backpack. And, we're in the same class. I'm like, what is that? All I can see is failing on the cover. It was a black book, gold writing. And I was just kind of looking. They said, just some book my parents gave me. So I got the name, and back then you had to go to a bookstore. We didn't have Amazon or anything. So I had to go to the bookstore and actually buy it. And it was a #1 bestseller. I was like, okay, well, I've come to the right place, whoever this John C. Maxwell guy is.
That's awesome. So if you have someone who is struggling right now, and we're just going to continue taking this same person down this journey on the show, what one book would you recommend to them?
Yeah, wow. There are so many incredible books. Of course, we would start with Misguided and the Magnolia. I think that's critical that everybody have that in their armamentarium.
I agree.
But failing forward will always hold a special place in my heart, Ian. I mean, it was transformative for me to shift my perspective and my belief in who I was and how I embraced learning opportunities and risk and fear of failure, etc. The second one is John's 15 Laws of Growth. I think are 15 of the most phenomenal laws that if you can incorporate those laws into the way you think and the way you live every day, you gain freedom, which I think is what if you ask somebody enough why questions, why they're doing something, they're going to come up with freedom more often than any other excuse, if you will. So these 15 laws have just been transformative, and they're kind of the skeletal structure for how I coach people from stuck and stagnant into growth is through John's structure of the 15 laws.
Okay. And then with that too, now disrupt comfort, does that play a role in your John Maxwell coaching, or is that an entirely different program, or what is it about disrupt comfort that plays into everything you're doing with John's team?
Yeah. So the value of the John Maxwell team is, #1, a network of like-minded people who want to help other people, right? So that's one aspect of the team. John's content. Love John Maxwell. I love a lot of different authors, but John has a team, and he's trying to transform the world by having discussions around his core content: communication, teamwork, growth, leadership, transformation, all those key buzzwords that are great topics for corporations, which are all trying to do all of that stuff for civic groups, for churches, you name the group. Some of John's content is going to play into that. So between a network of people that I can tap into to say, how do I do this? I've got a tremendous network around the globe to ask for help. I've got mentors, faculty on the John Maxwell team I have access to who have very successful businesses in coaching and entrepreneurship. And then John's content. Through all of that, that's John, right? That's not me. So disrupt comfort is my story of my journey from being in the comfort zone and stuck and stagnant, and then growing in self-awareness and self-belief and self-love. Peppering in some of John's content with my experiences tells an even greater story. So together, John and Ed come together to help disrupt people's comfort zones, which I think is the source of a lot of human suffering. So it's my personal brand supported by a wonderful mentor who's been doing this a lot longer than I have.
I love that so much. One of the things I was just talking about with someone is, actually, I'll say his name. Aaron Wexler and I were just having this conversation, and we were talking about how identity and how if you grasp onto someone else's identity, you're never going to get that sense of fulfillment, because we all have our own energy within us that, you know, it's how can myself and the Dr. Edwin Adams, you know, align to be able to do something powerful here. Right now we're doing it through a podcast, but if I'm sitting here trying to be you, I'm never going to be able to do what I was meant to do on this earth. However, you can absolutely help me unlock that. And so that's what I think is so powerful, is where you're using everything that you've learned through John Maxwell's team and then now applying it in Disrupt Comfort, because you used a foundation that somebody else had built and said, all right, I've gotten enough from this. Now I'm ready to start enhancing it and making it my own. And I think that's so appropriate, especially when you look at like professional fields, going to college and you're going to get certified in something. You're paying for that experience. You're paying for the knowledge. And then what do they say? All right, you graduated. Now go out to the real world and figure it out.
Yeah, exactly, Ian. And you know, I think if that's the value of mentorship, right? Ian, John Maxwell and his faculty have been mentors of mine for almost a decade. They've given me the clues that I needed to peel back the onions of my onion layers of my story, because in my network, not everybody knows John Maxwell, but they know Ed Adams and are going to connect with my story and my brand first because of our connection to each other, right? So I think that's the value of mentorship. If anybody leaves this conversation with any value, it's to recognize that we all need a coach in life. We all need mentors to help us, you know, change that trajectory that we're trying to go on. So it's not this long marathon. Maybe we can have some sprint opportunities with the help of a mentor. That's life. That's living. That's fulfillment. That is the joy in being connected to other people, I think, Ian.
Wow. Is that why you created the men's map? One of the things I found when I was diving into some research on you is you trademarked, it's called the men's map. And for those who are listening, it is for men who are tired, beaten, and looking for a map to help them find their authentic path forward without the worry, anxiety, and doubt.
Yeah.
Could not have put that any better. Like, that is such a beautifully crafted sentence. Like, what started that, and was that a part of Disrupt Comfort, or where was that in the sequence of things? Was it John Maxwell, then this, then Disrupt Comfort, or how did that flow go?
Yeah, so it's probably the men's map is going to be the premier product that it was founded in the Disrupt Comfort movement, if you will. So I've been coaching people since I was a college professor. I was the dean of students for the last few years of my tenure and counseled hundreds of young men and women through a lot of adversity, through their college experience, through broken families, through substance abuse, you name it. I've probably seen it. And I've carried that forward in professional coaching. And, you know, it's just clear that people have a firm understanding of where they are, right? That their feelings, their emotions, their vision is so narrow in where they are, but they all have some place they want to be. So this gap between the two is what they have trouble closing. And I was like, well, gee, if I have to go from point A to point B, a map would certainly be helpful, right? And I've just found in the last 8 years a lot more suffering in men, suicide rates going off the charts. Men are finding themselves in some unique situations and not knowing the way out. And I think they're making some bad decisions of checking out rather than getting on a map and working a process that gets them exactly to where they want to go. So the men's map was an outcropping of a way to disrupt comfort, if you will. But I don't want to say comfort, because what instigated it was more suffering, right? so disrupt suffering. I should have another buzzword, but trying to disrupt that and have a greater outcome in the lives of men right now. I just see way too many bad decisions, substance abuse, suffering, depression, death coming from something I think is solvable for if you just know the journey.
Absolutely. That's one of the things we're struggling with over here on the veteran side is, the 22 veterans a day that killed themselves. And I was just talking to my wife about that, where we were driving this morning. On the drive, I opened up Facebook, and sure enough, another person killed himself. And it's like, that is 3 days in a row. And I said it on day one, where I was like, wow, I was like, I just lost a friend. Second one. Second time I've opened Facebook and I see a suicide. And then today was the third. And I was like, I think I'm done opening up Facebook. Like, this is just unacceptable. And like, that's but I understand though, like the platform isn't the problem, but it's just when you're surrounded by that so much too, I have noticed my own mental health having to get checked with, I will have to go back and do my own reflection, because it drives me down the rabbit hole. Why are these guys suffering so bad that they're killing themselves? Was their life, truly to that point? Why didn't they reach out to me? All of these negative thoughts start overthrowing me. And so it's one of those where, how do we break that divide? And that's one thing, I don't know if you have a solution or at least a path. Obviously you've got the men's map, you've got your coaching. But that's one thing that I am so passionate about is just ask, be able to open up and say, I am suffering, I need help, and I'm ready to get answers. Cause that was something I was never willing to do. I don't know if I've ever told you this, and I certainly don't think I've ever said it publicly. So this will be episode 3 is about to be a shocker. But I've actually had my own fight with suicide as well, where I had a gun in my mouth and like I almost ended it all. And again, it was the Bible that pulled me out of it. Ended up renouncing my faith after it. And it was one of those where it's like, I have so many different times that God has come into my life, given me new life, and then I just abandoned him. I'm like, you know what? It wasn't for me. Appreciate you, but I'm not ready for you. Whereas this fourth and final time was the one where I was like, I get it now. I understand you've been there the whole time. And that's one thing that I just wish people would be able to see is that you have the answer right in front of you. It might not be the Bible. Like, don't get me wrong. There was never a Bible verse that stood out where I can look at you and be like, this verse saved my life. But it was the act of what it did. It's just being able to open it. It gets the brain flowing for a second. And I truly believe that whenever you open it, it gives you freedom. I truly think that there is just that blanket of grace and salvation laid over you. Even if you're a non-believer, when you open it, God's like, I've got my hand on you for this split second. Let me show you what rest feels like. And that's why it's so powerful. And I think that's what pulled me out of it. And so, yeah, I mean,
yeah, episode 3 is a shocker, dude. Yeah. Thank you for saying what you said. I mean, that took strength and courage right there. So you're being strong and courageous was your answer, right? You said no to that pathway.
Yep.
You received a cue and you pivoted. I wish I knew the magic formula that would allow people's eyes to be open to what's possible if they were thinking differently. But I also know that darkness is really dark when people get that low. I think that is, you've heard the statement, I am my brother's keeper.
Absolutely.
So I think we need to be in tune with each other. We need to have our networks of people that we care for and that we check in with. And when something's not right, we do something. We take an action to find the outcome that we seek in that person. And if they're in a bad spot, we lift them up. When you're siloed like that, it's hard. It's hard. And yeah, it's just
one of the things that I see too is it's oftentimes the people who are asking so much. So whenever, and we all have it, somebody will call you or text you and you just turn your phone over because you're like, I can't deal with that right now. It's that person that most of the time needs the help, but it's not until it's too late do we go, I should have been there to answer that call. I should have been there to answer that text. And so that's what holds you up too. But yeah, I mean, that is something that I'm so thankful that there's people like you that are out there that are trying to fight it though. You've created the men's map. You've created Disrupt Comfort. You're doing the John Maxwell coaching, so many different things all the way down to becoming a pharmacist. Like you said, there are 3 major areas that you are helping men in life. And do you also help women or is it just men?
Just men. That's, you can't solve all the problems in the world. You kind of have to pick your niche and then
Yep.
own it. So as much as I would like to help everybody, I'm a man and I know the struggles of men. So that's who I want to serve.
Absolutely. All right. Unless you have anything else that you want to throw on those conversations, we're about to enter the Phoenix Zone. Are you ready?
I am ready, sir. Let's go.
All right, let's pick this conversation back up. Some of the listeners might be like, man, this was a downer for a Monday morning or a Tuesday morning, whatever day you're listening. But I'm telling you, it's necessary. So share this message out because it may or may not save a life, like legitimately. All right, so now we're entering the Phoenix Zone. Let's go. We got 4 questions for you. First off, how did you discover your purpose in life?
Cool. I would say I'm still looking for it. But to answer the question, I would say you have to take risks. You have to try new experiences. You have to take action in this world. And one day, if you have faith, you might discover it in your lifetime. But it's not a destination on a map, dude. You just got to keep going and keep looking and enjoy the journey. That's where the magic is. And the answers are always found on the journey, not before it.
Absolutely. And it's when you're not stagnant on that path,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Where you're just sitting there waiting. I can't even tell you how long I sat and waited for answers after I got punched in the face 15 times, sat down and was like, all right, this is it again. In that moment of just, I'm done, you got to get up and you have to be pursuing something. I don't need to know what's in 10 years. I just need to know, what am I going to pursue for the next month, 6 months, year?
Yeah, and it's not about finding the right answer. Knowing that your next decision has to take you to your purpose and passion. You just have to have faith that if you keep doing that enough, you're going to discover it along the way. That's it. Just take the next step. Like the branch coming down the tree. Just take the next one and the next one and the next one. And one day, if you're lucky, you might find it.
Love that. All right. So where does your passion come from, and have you always had it?
Yeah, passion comes from insatiable curiosity. I want to understand. And was it Buddha that said, seek first to understand, then be understood? I think that is magic right there. And it hasn't always existed. No, I think my self-awareness has increased from that first day in college when you're kind of thrown out into the world and you kind of have to figure some things out. You've left the nest. You have to explore. You have to experiment. You have to figure some things out on your own because the answers are coming now from within you, not given to you for the most part. And that just keeps getting worse and worse and worse as life goes on.
Wow. Man, I gotta start opening this up earlier because I have so many things that I want to say, but I'm just like, nope. All right, we're in the end of the show now. We already entered the Phoenix Zone. We're gonna keep this rolling. All right. So, how do you define prosperity, and are you living a prosperous life?
Yeah, prosperity for me is the ability to see the abundance that's around you. I think it's real easy to be a victim and be narrow-minded and narrow-focused on negativity. And scarcity. That's the easy work. I think when you can see abundance, that's prosperity for me.
Man, so much I want to say. We're gonna keep this rolling.
We'll interview you next.
Oh yeah, for sure. So what is your power source that fuels these accomplishments?
Yeah, power source, God first, right? I mean, that is the source of light and life in me. And right behind that is my family, who I love to work for, love to work with, and love to work in the name of. So those two are my power. That is my recharge. When I need a recharge, those are my 2 places I go. That's easy.
Love it. And then the last question, which is, we're out of the Phoenix Zone now. So congratulations, you made it through the Phoenix Zone. But one of the things that you said earlier, and I definitely wanted to ask, is there's a lot of talk nowadays about should I go to college or should I not go to college? You hear it from all of these big entrepreneurs, from these business coaches, and kids are starting to see that at 18 years old, they might not know what they want to do in life. So they're taking a few years off before going. You are a very unique guest on the show because obviously you were involved very heavily in academia, going and getting your doctorates, and then also you being in a leadership role. How do you see college as it pertains to the real world, and is it necessary for these kids at 18?
Yeah, big question, Ian. Wow. How to answer that? I would say that higher education doesn't have all of the value that it used to have for entering the job market. For some people, college makes sense in the specific job arena that they're going after or want to try. For other kids, college isn't the answer. It's just as simple as that. I think you have a choice these days, and you need to understand the risks and the benefits of either choice. We still are in an economy where college is a faster track to success in some areas. But if you've got it together and you know what you want, you can go get educated in a lot of different places that are not college, that do not put you in massive amounts of debt, and you can be exquisitely successful. Both have their risks, both have their rewards. Make a decision. You can always go to either one.
That is so true. And I mean, that's one of the things with me being in the military. Military paid for all of my college. So now I got the real world experience. I got an associate's degree while I was in. I am now entering my senior year of college, and I still have my close to $125,000 for schooling. And it's funny because I joke with my wife all the time where I'm like, I don't really care about college at this point because I've already shown myself that I have the skills, that I've made, 5-figure days in business. I've had a very successful career on the entrepreneur side without even tapping into anything because, like you said, I started on Udemy. It was like a $5 web design and development course, and then from there I paid for a $50 one, a $500 one, and then ended up paying about $5,000 for the final culminating event, if you will. And that taught me web design and development, took that skill, and then did something with it. I didn't need the college degree. Nobody cared. They wanted to see my portfolio. But I would say now that I'm transitioning over to sports psychology, absolutely. When you start getting into the professional field, no one in the professional field is going to take you seriously if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, be any type of surgeon, pharmacist, any of that. You have to have the schooling.
That's right. But it's still your choice. Nobody's taken that away from you. And each of them, although mutually exclusive, you can jump back over anytime you need in order to accomplish that which you choose to do.
Wow. And last thing I have for you is, what services or products do you have that you want to offer? So everybody just spent 35, 40 minutes with you. Yeah. And now I want to be able to give you the platform to say, hey, here's who I am and what I've got to sell.
Yeah. More than selling, I would love to be in dialogue with someone who is stuck or stagnant. That's really the bottom line. And if any of what we talked about today resonates with anybody listening, just go to disruptcomfort.com, scroll all the way to the bottom, and there's a little link to book a complimentary call where if I can understand what you need and can help you, I would love to work with you. If I can't, I'd love to refer you to someone who can. It's as simple as that. I think your answers are going to be found in dialogue with someone else and on a journey. I'd like to be your on-ramp to your answer that we'll work on together. That's it. Nothing else to sell. I just want to be in conversation.
That's so powerful too, especially if I can't help you, I'll find someone who can. Yeah. Like that is a good sign of a leader right there. And I'm telling you, from what I know about the Dr. Edwin Adams, phenomenal guy. I'm telling you, this has been such a pleasure, and I thank you so much for your time today, sir. Seriously, thank you for being on the show and all that you're doing. On behalf of me and everyone else that's out there that have had those dark times, we need more people like you. So Keep shining your light with the world. For those of you who are trying to find him on social media, I will have all of the links to his book. I will have the links to his website and to his social media in the description below. And thank you so much for being here. You can find him at Disrupt Comfort on social media.
Bless you, brother. Thank you.